Well, hello and welcome back to Jones Financial Talk. This is Nick Jones from Jones and Associates Premier Financial Solutions. Listeners, if you'd like more information about what you hear on this awesome show today with Mr. Tony Shore, you can get a hold of us in a couple of different ways. You can give us a call at 541 500 4321, or you can just go to our website. That's always easy as well at jonesfinancialtalk.com. I also wanted to mention that while you're on the website, please click on the radio page to check out all of our past shows and to subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We even have the program now on Google Podcasts and Amazon Music. And the other thing that's really interesting about the website, in my opinion, is you can just request different topics that you want to hear on the show. And we always like hearing from listeners so that I can come up with some new content to share with you. Mr. Tony Shore and I love doing this weekly for you and coming up with a different idea. Tony, how are you doing, my friend?
I am doing great. I've had a really good holiday season. It was great to get together with family, saw my kids, and I've just been doing a lot lately with family, which is good. Got all that behind me, and just really busy right now. It's a busy time, and just trying to keep my head above water. I know you've been busy too. You
It
have a
sure
lot
is.
going on there.
I do. I do. The Rogue Valley is growing like crazy, which is a
Yeah.
great thing for local residents here and small businesses. And when that happens, more people call us, more people reach out, more people need help. And so I'm looking forward to continued growth here for us for sure.
Well, that's great, and I know that you really do a lot to keep up to date. You and I are going to be spending some time together in Nashville coming up at a big financial conference, and we'll probably record a show from there while we're there. That'll be fun. It'll be great to see you in Nashville too.
First time recording in the music country music Hall of Fame area, right? I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna be phenomenal in Nashville. We're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, we are. That'll be a lot of fun and a lot of great financial minds getting together there. But today, tell us what we're talking about.
Yes, sure. So I thought we'd start the week off by talking about, the four different chapters of retirement that people go through and the different things that they need to think about and prepare for in those stages. This is it helps me a lot to be able to plan with people when they know what those stages are, and also talk to them about those stages before they miss some opportunities. And so that's what I thought we'd discuss today, Tony.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard of the three phases once you're in retirement, but now you have four. That's good. I'm interested to hear it. You have me intrigued here.
Well, the first chapter is those pre-retirement years, and maybe this is the one that
Sure.
that you didn't think through or didn't think a lot about
That's
because
true.
it's before retirement. But here's the thing: this is an extremely crucial stage. If you don't do it correctly and you don't think about it, you're not going to plan appropriately. And I typically tell people that ask me that you need to start thinking about this specific stage or chapter about 10 years before you retire. Okay,
Wow.
and so sometime in your early 50s is when you would want to do this, because that's when you should be thinking about what your retirement goals are, the type of lifestyle that you want to live when you get there, and what you need to do that, Tony.
Well, yeah, that's the one I wasn't thinking about. I was thinking about what are the three stages within retirement, but you're right. Probably the biggest stage and the most important is what you do before you get there, your pre-retirement planning and strategizing. And really, that's where you come in. That's the big part of what you do for your clients is helping them plan for retirement, create that retirement income, make sure they have a plan in place going into it, right?
That's exactly correct. And a lot of people in this stage, Tony, reach out and are somewhat disappointed in the progress that they've made so far. They say, okay, I'm 50, I'm 52, I'm 55, whatever. And I don't have enough saved, and I'm not going to have enough saved to be able to enjoy retirement. And, that's not the truth. I mean, if you just commit to saving, there's lots of things that can happen in that short time period. Let me give you an example. If you just get an average rate of return of around 7%, your money doubles every 10 years. Okay. So let's say you have $100,000 saved for retirement at the age of 50. If you don't invest any more and you just get the average rate of return of 7%, which is above average, but that's, based on recent stock market performance, not, outlandish. You could be in a situation where you double that money or have $200,000 saved in a 10-year period. And the important thing here is always compounding money, compounding interest, like we've talked about. If you have the ability to start putting more money away in that first crucial pre-retirement year stage of retirement, clearly you're going to put yourself in a better situation. So the first thing that I just wanted to mention is make sure that even if you don't feel like you have enough money saved, talking to someone is going to put you in a situation to have enough saved to meet those goals that you're looking for 10, 15 years down the road.
Well, and having goals is a part of what you need to accomplish within that time frame. I mean, I think that once we turn 50, I think we feel that pre-retirement chapter is going to become more and more important every year that passes. So, what are some things we should be doing during that time?
Okay, so other than just the basic ideas of saving, right, and
Right,
talking with a financial services
which is
professional,
hugely important.
it is. One of the main things that I think a lot of people need to do is start thinking about how they're going to create some reliable retirement income and where those sources are going to come from, other than just their savings. A lot of people clearly know that Social Security is going to be a part of that for them, but what specific type of investments are you using in your retirement accounts, and are they going to be generating the income that you need appropriately when you reach the stage when you're going to start drawing off of them? And so starting that conversation earlier than you think is often very, very beneficial, for a lot of different reasons, but that's the biggest thing. So create that retirement income kind of picture or plan. We've talked a lot about this on the show before, Tony, and maybe we'll come back to it towards the end of the show if you have any questions on it. But creating a written income plan that outlines exactly what you're going to be able to get from all different sources of income other than your savings and retirement is crucial during this step.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot that goes into it, but you don't have to go it alone. You mentioned work with a financial services professional, somebody like yourself. And if our listeners out there want to get a hold of you, they can just go to jonesfinancialtalk.com, the contact form there, and get a hold of you, because it is so critical to have a plan in place, take advantage of that compounding interest that you mentioned earlier.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. I mean, there's so many different things that come up and come available in such a short period of time in the markets. What we've experienced here recently is, with an increase in interest rates, there's just lots of different products that are available that I couldn't even talk or share with clients and prospects, 6 months or a year ago. So if you're talking with people, a financial services professional on a regular basis, you're just going to put yourself in a better situation in this first stage.
Yeah, exactly. So the first stage is pre-retirement. Is there anything else we need to know about that, or what's stage two? What's next?
So stage two would be the early retirement years.
Oh,
And,
okay.
this is obviously most often the most expensive part because your health is going to be good. And that's going to mean that you're going to want to do more things, right?
Yeah,
You're probably
you're
going
going
to
to
want to
travel.
travel more, right? And you're going to want to, continue to do the things that you've always thought that you would do when you retire, like do more hobbies. For instance, I love golf. And so with golf, it's a huge time commitment. It takes 5, 6 hours to play 18 holes of golf. Well, when you're working, that's difficult to come by. But when you're not, you've got all the time in the world to do that. However,
Yeah,
if you've got all the time in the world, what also goes with that typically, Tony? More expense, right?
money,
And so,
spending money. You'll
so
need
when you're
lots and lots
healthy,
of money if you're going to do a round of golf every day,
yep,
or more than one. You're going to need some money, aren't you?
you sure are. And the idea here is depending on what your goals are, you should definitely have already spoken to your financial advisor about what type of income draw you're going to need in this stage. So let me give you an example. A lot of people think that they're going to spend more money in these first 10 years, which makes total sense to me. And so when I build an income plan for them, I front load it during these years. I make sure that they're going to have more income in that first 10-year period to do the things that we're talking about, to be able to travel, to do to do new things and come up with new hobbies, and to go out to dinner still and things like that. And it's also the first time that a lot of people consider, having a part-time job. This may seem weird, but I've got lots of friends and I've got lots of clients that retire and they say, Nick, I'm just going to take 6 months off or a year off, and I could spend my time in so many ways I haven't had a chance to do. And then what happens for some of them? Well, 6 months go by and they go, I need a little bit of purpose every single day when I get up, and I need to do something different. So the usual way that a lot of people do that is they come up with some type of part-time job that they enjoy. So I'll give you a perfect example. I just keep using the golf analogy because I love golf so much. I see lots of people in this stage that are marshals on golf courses, right? And they work 1 or 2 days a week part-time as a marshal. And what do they get? Well, they get free golf for themselves the other time that they're not working, but more importantly, it keeps them active. It keeps them out, integrated in society and talking with people and making sure that they're not just at home being bored.
Right. Yeah. And the golf analogy works there. A lot of people are into reading. They can volunteer or work at a library. You could work at a local museum if that's what you're into. I know some retired friends I have like being ushers at concert venues, and then they get to see the groups for free. They can stand there and listen to all the music and see all the shows and get paid for it. So
that happens a lot around here. Yeah. With the Brit Fest that we have in Jacksonville, Oregon, awesome. I've got lots of clients that do that, and it's just a great thing for them to be able to be out and having fun. More importantly, just doing something that they really, really, really enjoy, clearly.
Right. But you're right. People hit a wall, Nick.
They do.
And a lot of people think, I can't wait for retirement. And then you say, do you have a plan for retirement? What are you going to do? And I'm going to play golf every day, or I'm going to read all the books I want. I'm going to sit around and read. I'm going to watch TV shows. Well, golfing every day, reading books, watching TV, you're going to hit a wall quickly.
Yeah. I had a client, Tony, that came in last week, and I said, what have you been up to? And they said, I've had so many books that I've wanted to read and for so long, and I made it a commitment over the last year to just read a ton. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, tell me more about that. And he had read 72 books.
Oh my gosh.
In the last 12 months. And I said, holy moly, that is so many books. That's great. But you're
going to burn out eventually.
He looked at me and he said, I'm ready to do something else. So, that's going to happen. The good thing is you've got the time, you've got the energy during this stage to do a lot of things for yourself. Also, a lot of people in this situation, they move closer to their family because they want to be more involved with maybe their grandkids and their children when their children are younger and still working. And a lot of people need to consider their living arrangements during this time as well. And the reason why I say that is, if you have been in the same home for many, many years and you've got this big house that you raised your family, maybe it's time to consider downsizing during this time period, right? Because, finances are such that, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, lots of people have a huge amount of pent up equity in one specific investment, and that's usually their primary residence and home. And so this is something that we talk with lots of clients about during this stage to make sure that if they want to take advantage of maybe tapping into some of that equity, they do it when they're young enough to enjoy that move and find another home to be in. And so that's a big part of kind of this second stage as well, Tony. The early retirement years for our clients.
Yeah. Well, and I know that the 3 stages inside retirement have been referred to: the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years.
Yep.
So that second phase, the first phase is pre-retirement. The second phase is the go-go years, when
that's right,
you're still healthy enough, active enough that you can do things like travel if you want to purchase that RV or take a trip. A bunch of trips and travel around to the national parks. I know people do a lot of these types of things in their early retirement years. So that's phase two. What's the second phase? I would imagine that's when things start slowing down. That's probably when you're going to spend the least amount of money, is in that second phase or the third phase, which
That's
is
right.
the slow go.
Yeah, the middle retirement years are the
Yeah.
slow go years for sure. That it is often the most least expensive because you're traveling less, you're staying closer to home. Most likely you've spent money on the things that you wanted to in the first, say, 10 years of retirement. And so, you kind of got everything dialed in. Um, there are some things that you need to be aware of. The first I would say is you've got to be extremely careful during this phase, because often healthcare expenses can tick up on us during this time.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
the thing is, if you've gotten to this stage and you haven't thought about a couple of things that I'm going to mention here during this session, during the middle retirement years, it might be too late. And that's the reason why we're talking about it, so you can think through this. So healthcare expenses, do you review that on a regular basis? Do you have adequate coverage? Are you sitting down and talking to a trusted resource on that side? A lot of people feel, Tony, like, Medicare is going to cover everything. But the fact is, it doesn't cover lots of things. You're going to have some additional, medical services and equipment and things that you're going to need during this stage of your life. And you need to plan for that and sit down and talk to somebody. Another huge, huge thing, which we've talked a lot about on the show here, is somehow sitting down, considering, discussing a plan for long-term care. It could be insurance, but it could be lots of other things as well. If you're in a situation where you're going to consider long-term care insurance, you've got to do that way earlier than this stage, because the older you get, the more expensive it is. You're on mute.
So you shouldn't wait until the final stage, the no-go years, to think about how you're going to cover that long-term care. You should actually be thinking about that during pre-retirement and the go-go years, right?
That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
Yep, because it's just so expensive to get insurance later in life. Lots of people get insurance in their 40s, 50s, or 60s that will progressively work and be utilized later in life because they're so much younger and healthier. And
Sure.
if you continue to pay those premiums, and if you structure those ideas correctly, you're going to be in a situation to better benefit from those types of insurances for sure.
Sure. And you mentioned during those middle retirement years, or the slow go years, that phase 3 of retirement, that, healthcare costs are going to creep up. And you mentioned things aren't covered. I know a lot of hearing, dental, and vision, 3 things that we're going to start needing in retirement, are not covered by Medicare, most of your traditional Medicare. And that's why Medicare Advantage plans are so important, or supplemental. So I know that you need to talk to somebody who's a specialist in this field, and you have Medicare specialists on staff there, don't you, at Jones and Associates, for your clients?
We sure do. Yep, that's a very important part of the overall financial picture, and that's something that we work very closely with clients on.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, again, Medicare, when you need those hearing aids, and they can cost 10, 15 grand for really good ones, that isn't typically covered by Medicare. That's for sure.
That's right.
Medicare doesn't cover that. And they don't cover a dental or vision for the most part, and they don't cover long-term care. So Medicare does not. Medicare doesn't. So you need to have plans in place.
The other thing I was going to mention too here, Tony, is, a lot of people, when they get to this stage, they know that long-term care is going to be necessary for them shortly down the road. Don't feel like if you haven't planned for this with insurance, you're just out of luck. There's lots of things that you can do to consider just putting together a solid plan if you get into the situation where you need long-term care help, right? The equity in your home can be a reverse mortgage option. Investments can help. Some annuities have different long-term care riders that are built into them. So lots of things for you to consider. And usually when I sit down with prospects or clients that are in this phase and they are, let's say, just kind of down about long-term care expense, it's just a conversation you need to have with your financial advisor on a very regular basis to make sure that those options are available to you, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's huge. It's all a part of the planning process, which, the best time to start planning It was probably 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now.
Right now.
And this is also the best time to get a second opinion. So let's let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you, Nick.
Sure thing.
How could they set up that no charge, no obligation consultation?
Couple different ways. They can just go to jonesfinancialtalk.com and request further information from us there. They could also give us a call at 541-500-4321. Either are great options, and we'd be happy to help in any way possible.
All right. Sounds great. Okay. So we've talked about the first three phases of retirement. The first was pre-retirement. The second was the early retirement years, or the go-go years. The third is the slow go years, where things start slowing down. Your medical, it's going to be your least costly, but you need to start planning for that fourth and final stage, which is your no-go years, right?
That's right. That's right. Before we get there, I totally forgot one very, very important thing to do in the stage before, which is, your middle retirement years, and that's creating a legacy plan. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because that is a huge thing for many, many people. The estate planning issue and legacy plan is something that you have to have. And the reason, Tony, why I wanted to just step back and talk about it during the middle retirement year period is this is when people are still healthy enough, both from a health standpoint and mental standpoint, to continue to create and make those decisions. Right. You have to be, you have to do this at an appropriate time. You have to create, you have to review all the different legacy plans and ideas that you're trying to accomplish while you still can. And you got to make sure your assets are going to go where you want them to. Beneficiary planning is a huge part of this stage. We offer a great service on our website called the Generational Vault, which is a very, very secure online safe deposit box that helps making legacy planning easier. It gives our clients the opportunity to upload wills and trusts and healthcare directives and things of that nature. And we work with our clients on all of those things. But part of it also is just sitting down and talking to somebody to make sure that everything that you're doing and all of your assets are titled correctly, and your beneficiaries that are on file are perfect for the way that you want them to be. Just a very few, detailed planning steps can go a long way to avoid probate and other issues that just can really, really affect the next generation that's going to inherit some of this money and some of the assets. So I just wanted to just step back for a second and mention that legacy plan is something that you've got to do in that stage, and you've got to be active about talking to your advisor about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And certain aspects of the legacy plan have to start as early as that pre-retirement stage. And you really should have a conversation about that. If you haven't, get that legacy plan in place, and for sure by these early stages of retirement, right?
Yep. And thinking about that last stage of retirement, the later years that you mentioned, Tony, kind of the no-go years, this is when you're going to spend probably the most on healthcare. I read recently an article that kind of outlined healthcare costs for a retired healthy couple, say at the age of 60. If you retire and one of you lives until you're 90, you're looking at spending somewhere around $300,000 in healthcare costs during that 30-year period.
Oh my goodness!
And most of it happens during that later year stage. And so, what are the things that you should be thinking about? Well, think about your assets. Think about how you've drawn them down. Think about what other assistance programs are available. Maybe Medicaid is an alternative for you to consider during that point. And so, you've got to have all of the different stages. In all of the different stages, you've got to have an appropriate plan in place so that you understand what could happen and how you're going to take care of those things that do happen during that time, Tony.
Yeah, and that it is a tough time. The no-go years, we're kind of winding down. Of course, my grandfather lived to 101, Grandpa Bob.
Amazing.
And he was camping 2 months before he passed. So, but he's he's an outlier. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way for most of us. But yeah, I mean, you have to plan, and the longevity seems to be going more and more for a lot of people. So you've got to plan for a long time in retirement. And how are you going to cover these things, these medical costs, especially in those no-go years. You got the go-go, the slow-go, and the no-go years when you might need assisted living or memory care. And, nobody likes to talk about that or think about our passing, like the legacy planning, but long-term care planning is a big part of that. And you don't want to leave a huge burden on your family either.
That's right. And also, one thing I wanted to mention here is, a lot of people say the day I die is the day every single dollar in my account's going to be gone. That would be perfect, right?
Yeah,
But
I want to bounce my last check.
but the reality is that just doesn't happen. And so,
right.
The reason why I bring that up is in this last stage in your later years, depending on your health and depending on the longevity in your family, your investment perspective could be completely different. So why am I even mentioning that? Well, earlier in retirement, you're trying to generate income off of your investments to live on, to do all the fun things that you're trying to accomplish and do. But later in life, a lot of people think, oh, well, I just need to be ultra conservative and keep all my money in cash or CDs or something like that. But let's think through this for a second, Tony. If you're later in life and you're happy living the way that you are, and you've got extra means and extra investments and things like that, ultimately, where's that money going to go? It's going to go to the next generation, right? You're donating that to charities, or you're giving it to your family members or friends or something like that. And the reason why I say this is important is if I knew that your goal at the age of 90 was to take the $200,000 in an account that you have and take half of it that you're going to give away to invest it for your grandkids, maybe you should be a little more aggressive with that specific type of investment because they're so young, more aggressive than what you would be thinking that you're going to just use the money in the next couple of years. So the point I'm trying to make here is investments change in all of these different kind of parts of your retirement phases, and it's all relevant to whatever your specific situation is. And so don't just think, well, everybody that's my age probably uses this type of an investment, so that's what I should use.
Right.
That's not the case.
Yeah. Everybody's situation is different. And that's why you look at all the individual aspects of somebody's life and their plans and their goals and their situation, and then come up with a plan based on that. Right.
And that's the most fun kind of part of my job. Being a financial planner, being a certified financial planner gives me the ability to think about all of these different ideas and options that are going to come up in people's lives and how we're going to accomplish that. It's not about just sitting down and selling an investment. That's a broker. That's some type of advisor, right? So our firm focuses heavily on a financial blueprint from day one. In that first stage, when you're in your 50s, to kind of project out where you think you're going to be and try to figure out if you can accomplish those goals. But I update that financial blueprint plan through all of these stages, depending on what's important to the client. And you have to do that. You have to think about projections. You've got to think about the different investments. You've got to think about the different costs of living. You've got to think about your income sources. You've got to think about your estate planning, the legacy that we've talked about. But here's the most important thing that most prospects come to our firm without, Tony. Any of that stuff written down.
Right.
The biggest thing is you got to write it down. Why wouldn't you write it down with your advisor? Why wouldn't you make them do that for you?
Have a printed plan that's printed out, written down, that you can follow. And that's huge. Obviously, you can't just talk about it and say, this is what I'm going to do.
That's right. And how would you or they know if those projections are going to work if you do it once and forget about it?
Yeah.
Right. So when people come into our firm and sit down with us and use our extensive financial planning, knowledge, the fun part for me is showing them and proving to them how these projections work during the stage in the life that they're in. And things change like crazy during the time period that we start working together, and we work until the end of their lives. And so the point is, you've got to have a written plan, and it's got to be updated on a regular basis. If you're not sitting down with your financial advisor and getting those questions answered, you're just doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah. And it's probably costing you. You're making costly financial mistakes because of it. Well, we're out of time. Nick, let our listeners know one more time before we go how they can get a hold of you to get that plan.
Sure thing. You could just go to jonesfinancialtalk.com or reach out to us at 541-500-4321.
All right, and that does it for today's episode of Jones Financial Talk with our host, Nick Jones.